Okay, so it seems like we have another update on the Hoyoverse situation with the voice actor strike and all of the voice actors. Now, a lot of you guys mentioned in the last video and were quite upset at the fact that I said that I, wish that a lot of the VAs actually had, AI protections, and you guys were saying that they already do have AI protections and things like that in the comments. I do understand that, by the way. It was just a kind of general comment that I was trying to make. I did want to kind of address that right at the start of the video. It was a general comment. I wish that any voice actor gets, kind of AI protections, like, not specifically towards Genshin, Zenless, or Hoyoverse. I just meant in general, I felt like they should have, AI protections, whether it's there or not, regardless. That was the kind of statement I was trying to make. But again, there is obviously the case that, there is already AI protections in place for a lot of these people. And obviously, yeah, it's embedded into Chinese law and also into some other kind of aspects of, a lot of this kind of stuff. Now, I just wanted to start off with this, obviously the Blue Sky account of Karina, who is the voice actor of Paimon, who we're going to be seeing quite a bit in a little in the next update, because there has been an announcement which I wanted to go through. But I did also want to look at this real quick, because obviously people have been talking about the Zenless Zero stuff, and I just want to show you how bad it's gotten, especially over on Blue Sky. Because let me, I'll ask you, is this the normal amount for someone to be retweeting posts? Bear in mind, this is all in the past day, like 24. I'm saying like 24 hours. Is this a normal amount to be retweeting? I'm still going. I mean, I saw that and I was like, okay, well, anyways, let's move on. Let's move on to the special program announcement, which is the 5.6 special program, which is actually set to premiere in about 2 hours. So we're going to find out even more news about what is going on with this version. But one thing that they probably won't mention is the voice actors. Who is going to be here? Who is going to be voicing in the Mondstadt quest? Because obviously it's really great that Genshin Impact is going back to Mondstadt. I feel like, it could be a very interesting thing. And, I feel like a lot of players have been very hyped for it. I mean, the actual Twitter post originally for the announcement got 88.3 million views and 73,000 likes, which obviously is great. And it seems like people are very, excited for it to happen. But also, a lot of people are very skeptical about this, because obviously, people are saying expected English voice lines from version 5.6. Venti, 0. Albedo, 0. Jean, 0. Kaya, 0. And they were literally, they're missing out a very important point here. Paimon, 100% of all the lines, because obviously they are still recording a lot of the lines in general. And obviously, yeah, a lot of people are, are bringing this up, and it seems like it's not just this one guy. There was a lot of people in the comments as well being like, okay, how many of these voice actors are going to leave? How many voice actors, here we go, like, so Mondstadt story, how many recasts are we gonna get? Which again is kind of crazy. They say we will see, but the irony is if they do return, they're going to have to explain why it was okay to cross the picket line. If it's mute, then possible recasts are going to happen unless the recast had already happened within the 6 months. Either decision doesn't look good. Yep. But either way, a bullet has to be bit. So obviously they're referring to a lot of the Zenless Zero stuff, because obviously Zenless Zero, people didn't know that the voice actors were replaced until the actual update came out, because, that's when they had to make the patch notes. They never really make an announcement whenever they, the moment they change a voice actor or anything like that. It's usually the next update that they're in, we find out. And obviously, we haven't seen Mondstadt characters in a little bit of a while, so it's going to be interesting to see how many of these voice actors have stayed the same, how many of them are mute, and how many of them have been changed, because it seems like it's a definite option for Hoyoverse at the moment, because again, it's not a real strike. The strike isn't actually a proper one where, you have these kind of protections in place. They can replace you, and they do have every right to, because, they're not working. And I feel like with the Mondstadt story and everything like that, well, I feel like there is some voice actors in there that might, not want to voice or whatever, which could cause some problems for Hoyoverse in the long run. And, well, it's going to be interesting, because if we go back to the Mondstadt story and it's all mute, I feel like, it might put the nail in the coffin for Genshin Impact. I'm going to be honest. I think people were kind of fed up with this stuff, and it seems like people are already over the edge in terms of, their dislike for a lot of the voice actors and for a lot of the things that they do over online. And, there's even more people saying, I just hope that whatever they do, it takes to make sure all of the relevant bits are properly voiced in EN. Sure, we can listen in JP, but for some people like me, EN just hits differently. Ensuring EN voice over is so important, especially for a lore-heavy patch like this. They say definitely. I'd rather just have it voiced entirely, even if things are shaky. given what VAs they can currently cast, which I think is true. You know, as someone who enjoys a lot of different kind of languages and things like that, I watch a lot of anime, and usually I'm a sub watcher, so you know I watch it in Japanese. But for like kind of gacha game stories, I actually do prefer it in English. I don't know why, it's just easier to get it into my brain because I'll read it and also listen to it at the same time. And I think it is easier for me to kind of understand. So yeah, switching over to like Japanese or Korean, I can understand why people don't want to switch over to it, especially, you know, during a story, you know, phase. I think that it's fine during like, you know, just exploring and stuff. Sometimes I even do switch over to JP just because I'm interested. But again, you know, I can definitely understand why some people don't want to switch it over because, again, it helps them whenever it comes to, you know, understanding the story. And, well, if the characters are mute, then you can't even understand the story in the first place. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. They say, I've said this before, but it would be really stupid to recast that, have characters that have huge fan bases like Venti and Albedo. The backlash would be immense. Well, if they're not going to voice, and this is such a major lore patch, Hoyo doesn't really have a choice. Might as well bite the bullet, which I do actually agree with. You know, I feel like if they're not voicing now, and if they're not doing their job, especially after this long, like, let's be real, it's been so long since we've had Mondstadt. It's been so long since we've seen any of these characters come up. And now they finally have the chance to actually use their voice and actually do even more work for Genshin. And they say, no, I'm not doing it. Well, you know, you might as well just replace them at that point because, you know, it's been so long. You haven't asked for like tons of work out of them or anything like that. And you're just trying to, you know, get one of these quests done. And they say, no, well, you know, it might just be better if they get replaced. Now, obviously, yeah, some of them say, I hope all of them who refuse to voice, they say that's a lot. We're looking at 20 to 30 recasts here, which again, yeah, that is going to be a pretty large scale recasting. I don't know how many voice actors are available to kind of take their jobs because you've got to think as well, whenever it comes to recasting a character, a lot of the people are you know, there's limited voice actors in general anyways, and, you know, ones they can use from certain companies and whatever, but also B, there's a lot of people out there who don't want to take the job, you know. Obviously, as we saw with Jacob, you know, he got absolutely lambasted by the community because of, you know, what he did, and he took the Kenichi voice actor job, which I don't think is wrong, by the way. I think that's totally acceptable. But obviously, he was attacked by voice actors, like fellow voice actors, like Paimon's voice actor, like Kuching's voice actor, you know, them digging into his social life and stuff like that, and to his personal life. And, you know, people don't want that to happen to them, you know? And I feel like there's going to be a lot of voice actors that, you know, would be wanting to take a job like that, but then are going to go, well, I don't really want to be attacked by all the voice actors in the community for taking this job. And, you know, maybe they'll shy away from it. The same thing as well. Some people don't like being called scabs and everything like that for taking them. But honestly, I don't think it's the biggest of deals. If you want to take it, you know, it could be a really big boost to your career, especially if you get offered something like that. They say, all of which still refuse to work. I'm taking it personally now after knowing it's a sham strike and the way some of them have been behaving online. So for Mondstadt, we're looking at 14 recasts, which is crazy. You know, this person seems to be very heavily into, you know, recasting a lot of the voice actors. I do think there is an option to kind of, I guess, negotiate with them and just kind of like hope that they do kind of voice this kind of stuff. But hey, we don't know. They say, assuming that we're not doing it slowly in batches, 14 Mondstadt characters are expecting recast. Notably, Sucrose, obviously, Jean, Amber, and Kaya. Lesser are Klee and Mika. Now, I don't know what kind of information they have behind that, and, you know, why they think these voice actors are going to be recast or aren't going to appear in the story. Because, again, it's very confusing. But I've seen a lot of people, especially like kind of Genshin Impact content creators, talking about this too. And it's actually kind of good to see because it's one of these kind of situations where, you know, I've been in the Hoyoverse community for a while. I know how it runs. I know how the content creators act. And a lot of them are very positive about the game. You know, we know that. We know that Genshin Impact is one of these games that gets, you know, pretty glazed by a lot of their own fans and by a lot of their own content creators. And that's all they ever talk about. But it seems like with this kind of situation going on with the Mondstadt stuff, I've seen a lot more posts coming from Genshin Impact content creators, positive ones, by the way, talking about this and actually saying that, hey, you know, this isn't good enough, or like making a joke out of it, or literally just talking about it in general. Because beforehand, we wouldn't see anything like this, you know? We wouldn't see them talk about it at all, whether it was a joke, whether it was serious, whether, you know, they meant to, you know, do the most insane thing ever. No, you know, they just didn't talk about it at all. They just went, oh, I'm just going to go grind my artifacts or something like that. And they would just continue on with their day. But it seems like I'm starting to see a lot more content creators talking about the fact that you know, it could suck if, you know, this entire quest is muted, or, you know, there is some issues with this entire quest's voicing, because let's be real, the only thing that is affecting this strike, or no, sorry, affecting this update, sorry, is the fact that, you know, of the strike that's going on, or sorry, strike in quotation marks. You know, this is the only thing that is going to make this quest worse, is the fact that, you know, there's going to be no voice actors, and it's not going to be, you know, Hoyoverse's fault in particular. It's not going to be, you know, the players' fault in particular. It's going to be these voice actors who are refusing to do this' fault. And well, you know, if Hoyoverse needs to replace them to save this quest and to help out their game in the long run, so be it. Because again, you know, as I said, you know, this is a very, very much loved, much wanted quest. You know, 8 million views over on Twitter is absolutely crazy. And well, you can't even imagine the amount of backlash that's going to come out if, you know, like one of the characters is voiced. It's going to be crazy because, again, people aren't very happy at all with the current state, but it's going to get even worse if we go back to some old nostalgic things, you know, stuff that me, even as, you know, someone who doesn't play as much Genshin anymore, really, really loved whenever I first started playing the game. And then they've all of a sudden ruined it by, you know, having no voices, none of this stuff, and making the quest, you know, entirely worse. A lot of the OG fans are going to get very mad at that too. A lot of the people that have been around there for ages are going to get mad about this. And well, it's just like, you know, it doesn't create a very good environment for Hoyoverse in general, and I feel like it could provide a big issue for them if they don't actually sort this out. So just as I was trying to edit another video, I actually saw this thing come up over on my Twitter page, which is from Genshin Universe, which is a reply over on TikTok from Venti's voice actor. Now, obviously, I was talking about, you know, it'll be kind of disappointing if some of these voice actors didn't turn up. And well, Venti is one of the main characters, obviously, over in the Mondstadt storyline. And well, this person here is obviously confirming the fact that they won't be there in 5.6. So it seems like we already have a confirmation of one voice actor which won't be there. They say Venti won't be voiced in version 5.6. They say, just asking, will you be voicing Venti in the 5.6 patch? Please say yes. So alas, I wasn't able to figure out the full 5.6. The politics as an actor are very annoying, but I'll be back soon. So I don't know what they're referring to there. I'm not sure if it's in, like, you know, they want to do it themselves, or if it's just as a voice actor, it's kind of hard and there's a lot of pressure on, you know, her not to do it and for her not to get involved. But it's going to be very interesting for some of the other voice actors, because if Venti's voice actor isn't there, well, what's going to happen with some of the other ones, you know? And I feel like Venti is obviously a really big part and one of the kind of most looked forward to parts of the Mondstadt region, just due to, you know, their personality and how, you know, kind of fun and stuff, you know, they usually are. And well, it seems like a lot of people are going to be very disappointed by this news, but I'll keep adding on if there is any other information about this, but it is pretty crazy that we're not getting Venti already. Okay, so a quick update to what happened in the Genshin Impact livestream. Well, it's still ongoing currently, but we've gotten the main look at, you know, some of the trailers and the voices coming to the game. And well, it definitely seems like, well, there's not going to be very many English voice actors in the Genshin Impact version for the next version, which obviously is a shame. And obviously all of this is to do with the strikes I've been talking about throughout this video. And yeah, this basically confirms that we won't be getting as many voice actors. Now, obviously the new characters are voiced. They announced a new 5-star character, as well as Aoife as well, who is a 4-star character. Now, these are all voiced. And also, I think a very like clever thing that Genshin Impact has done this time is one of the voice actors is actually British. So it seems like they are trying to reach out to some more people over in the United Kingdom and other places like that, so that they can get, you know, jobs done without them having to strike or anything like that, which obviously is going to be better for Genshin Impact in the future, because they shouldn't have any issues with voice actors going on strike, with voice actors not wanting to work or whatever, because again, it's not even a proper strike, you know, they're just not wanting to work. But again, this entire trailer was in Japanese, so they're pushing the Japanese side of the game even more, meaning that, you know, I think the majority of people are going to be playing this in JP whenever it does actually release, which is a shame, because obviously they announced a ton of new stuff, including, you know, even more Mondstadt story, which actually looks very exciting. It brought me back to a lot of the nostalgia that, you know, we felt during a lot of the early days of Genshin Impact. And well, you know, it was really, really good. It looked good, and I was very interested in the story. And they also like did stuff like reveal stuff like Varka, who might actually be coming to the game, or we might see, you know, be revealed in the game very soon. But obviously this was all done in the Japanese version, which obviously felt a little bit jarring to me, seeing as I've always played it in the English version. I played the start of the game in the English version. So it's a bit disappointing that we can't see all of these characters, you know, being added to the game once again, or I say added to the game, but like shown in the game once again with the English voice actors, with all of them being there, because I think that the experience of using English voice acting in this quest is going to be pretty poor. You're going to have a lot of, you know, muted characters and stuff, and that's why a lot of people are going to just switch the language. So yeah, that pretty much confirms a lot of the fears that a lot of people were talking about, and obviously, yeah, it seems like from what we see from the trailer and from a lot of the live stream, this is going to be what is going to happen with Genshin Impact at the moment, and you know, it's probably not going to change for a little bit. So yeah, you can blame the strikes for that one. So yeah, it's ruined. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this. Do you think that, you know, the update will be much worse without the voice actors, or do you think that it won't be as bad even if it is muted? Honestly, as someone who's been playing, you know, for ages and, you know, has played, you know, these kind of Mondstadt quests, you know, years ago, I feel like if it isn't voiced, it's going to be a massive disservice to the entire patch, and that it's going to be, you know, overall quite disappointing. So if you guys did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and also go to GameStop, use my code KAZA, get 10% off, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.